All right, guys. I have a special guest for you. I have Zach Tarhini here in Kansas City, Kansas, with Meta Coffee. And just talking to him before the show, he has a very interesting business structure and just a very interesting guy all around. And I think you're going to have fun listening to his story today. But really quick, what's up, Zach? How you doing, man?
Hey man, good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we just showcase a lot of local business owners here just to kind of help out other entrepreneurs just, with their journey. And so with that, I just want to thank you so much for joining our platform on Business Spotlight and where you're just vulnerable, you're open and everything like that. So
Yeah, of course.
um
Do it.
really quick, Zach, from just a bird's eye view of you and your company and maybe just like how you started everything, like
Yeah,
give us like the lowdown on that.
sure. Yeah. So after I internshiped with a coffee roaster in college, and then started working there after for a little bit, and I moved on. Wanted to see what else there was. Wanted to move on to some other stuff. Um, but eventually, I wanted to get back into coffee somehow or another. I wanted that to be a part of what I did somehow, and I thought the best way to do that was to start my own coffee roasting business. I
Mhm.
kind of had a little bit of the wherewithal, having been in the industry a little bit. So I kind of saved, pooled my money, researched, bought a roaster, and kept the overhead low and started in the basement of my house and
Mm.
started roasting and doing farmers markets in 2015. So I did that for several years. 6 years. Did farmers markets, and with the idea of eventually opening a cafe, and then got to do that in 2021. So yeah, here we
Oh
are.
wow.
I eventually sold the operation of that cafe, but we still work together and do wholesale and consulting and all that kind of stuff.
Nice, nice. So you started a cafe like kind of during the COVID time.
Yeah,
Like
it's kind
how
of
how
kind
did
of mid pandemic, right?
yeah, because I know the pandemic was like beginning of 2020, but it lasted through 2021. I mean,
Sure.
I know the different parts of the United States, it was people treated it differently, but
Yeah.
it was still on people's mind in
Oh,
2021. Like how
totally.
how was that experience?
Yeah, it was interesting. So when we were kind of conceptualizing it, and we were starting to design it, we built in a walk-up window with the idea that that
Oh, okay.
walk-up window might be utilized quite a bit with everything. Uh, we kind of hit kind of that first initial wave of everything dying down when we opened, and we're like, oh, we're in the clear, it's great. But then, I think the next
Yeah.
variant popped back up again, and
Yeah.
we saw some of that. But yeah, no, we had the walk up window with the idea that that would maybe help, and it's a smaller cafe. It wasn't going to be super congested, so
Got it.
we masked when we needed to. We removed the mask requirement once it chilled out, and it kind of worked itself out.
Okay, I get that. I get that. I just want to back up just a little bit, just because you said that the best way you thought you could do it was to start your own business. Obviously, you're a pretty smart guy. Like you did some research. What was the thing that actually inspired you to go that route instead of maybe just working for a larger company that does what you do?
Yeah,
Um,
well, I kind of did that. I kind of worked for the larger company. I kind of had an
okay,
idea of what that was going to be like. And to be totally honest, it was a little bit of a selfish endeavor.
okay,
It was kind of scratching my own itch of being able to do the copy that I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do it. And while it might be smaller scale, I kind of had a little bit more control in that area. And so it was at that we have roasters all over the city now.
right.
I think in 2015 that wasn't necessarily the case. I think there were more coming up for sure, but you had your pick from a handful. But I
Yeah,
thought that I could kind of provide a little niche area of the market. So
nice.
that was kind of the idea, at least.
Awesome, awesome. So you felt like you were, unique enough to be able to do that, and it kind of seems to me that you probably have like that creative side of you, where I find that's a lot of artists or people that are creative. It's like I know what I want, I know exactly what I want to do, and I can't find that fulfillment doing it for somebody else or a larger company. Was there a little bit of that?
So, well, I'd like to think so, and it's not to say I couldn't do it for another company. I mean, there are definitely companies out there
Mhm.
doing a really good job, and you could, totally work for them and express everything you wanted to express. It's there aren't that many jobs within those companies to do so, because
Sure.
those people who get those tend to hold on to them. But it
Right.
was it was the best way that I knew how to do it, as quickly as I could in the way that I wanted to, at least.
Got it. Okay. Well, in the intro, I heard, you started in your basement, you did that for a few years. You started a coffee shop,
Mhm.
obviously during the pandemic, but then you quickly sold that. Can you share with some of the people that are watching, what were some of the highs and lows between the times of you starting in your basement, opening up the shop, selling it? Like, what were some of the challenges that led you to some of those things? What were some of the victories? I know it's a loaded question, but you can kind of just
Sure.
go
Yeah.
from
So,
there.
so I mean, so for those first few years, it was just me. It was, it was one person operation. I was in control of, all of the sourcing, the roasting, the brewing for farmers markets, sales numbers, everything. It was, one person operation. Moving into that coffee shop space, you have to loosen up some of that control because you have more people involved. And so that took it was a little bit of an adjustment for me to loosen up and be able to allow others um to do some of that. It wasn't me in the shop all the time showcasing that end product. That was I was going to have to allow somebody else to do that. I have a question about the business or the coffee. I'm not the one answering that anymore. So you've got to try to prepare other people to be able to do that to the best of their abilities. So that was a little bit of a hurdle. And then the focus not being entirely on the product anymore because there's so much else going on.
Mm,
It's like I've always been very product oriented and very,
okay.
high quality product first. That has to be the number one thing. And that's not the only thing. Once you open up a shop, you have other things. You have,
Mhm.
staff, you have inventory, you've got all sorts of stuff you've got to take care of. So having to, you know, schedule and figure that out and make time for everything, whether it be your
Sure.
favorite task or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was definitely that element since your product focus that took your attention away from a lot of that because you had to run a business. You had to deal with other humans, other emotions, other things that are demanding of your time. I get that. I get, and that's
Yeah.
hard for people. Have you ever read the book The E Myth by any chance?
The E-Myth. No, I haven't.
It's a great book if you want to reach it, and also if you're viewing this thing, this podcast, you probably want to read that book. But it talks about how like people come into business because they have a passion about something,
Hmm.
and it gave an example of a lady named Sarah. She was a baker. Her grandma taught her how to make pies, and so she opened up her own bakery. And the motivation of just the excitement, you know, kept her kind of going for about a year. But then after that, like one disappointment after another in business, sooner or later, she was not doing it because she was passionate about her grandma's pies. It was
Sure.
more of that burden. And I kind of heard that,
Totally,
there.
that totally resonates. And I think I've heard that story several times. A lot of times it starts off as a passion project and it
Mhm.
starts off as something you love, and you see it a lot of times morph into, just going through the motions and going through the routines of business all of a sudden,
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that was maybe part of what I didn't want to happen when I decided to sell the cafe portion to
Mhm.
my business partner.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that some of those things were becoming monotonous. Some of those things were maybe not as fun or exciting for me, and it felt like just another thing I had to do to, you know, source coffee from a farmer or to roast or something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that didn't go any farther than that. So yeah, I mean, that totally resonates. That sounds.
Yeah.
I'll have to pick that up. That sounds like a good
Yeah.
read.
It's a great book. And, that's where a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in a lot of places. But obviously, you're still roasting coffee
Mhm.
and your business has taken a different identity and you're still
Sure.
in business. But I want to go to a very important part of business that I've learned as a business coach where, you really got to find somebody's passion, their vision, their mission of why they want to do what they do. And thankfully for you, it sounds like you found that quick. So you got rid of what was going to take you away from that, and now you're kind of rebranding, rebuilding, so that way you can really focus on that. Can you tell the listeners how important having a strong vision and a personal purpose in life is for to kind of keep you strong and steady when it
Right.
comes to business? Because business from the outside looking in, a lot of people think, oh, business owners are great. They have freedom of time, they have freedom of money. But you and I both, and a lot of our viewers know that is further from the truth at times. You
Yeah,
know.
and I think it's very important, and I think, but even more so, the idea of the vision
Hmm.
being understanding that that's evolving all the time as well. You know, you having that vision, but realizing that that's going to change over the years and being able
Mm,
to adapt to that, I think is really important because
yeah.
I mean, how many times do people keep the same vision for the same business over a 7, 8, 10 year period? You know,
Mhm.
when I first started, the goal was I wanted to have, I wanted to have a coffee shop. I wanted to have a big coffee shop where we baked our own pastries and, did all this stuff. And then
Mm,
I had a coffee shop and I'm like, this is really cool. I think I like some of this other stuff too, so it's kind of, it's on my mind all the time beforehand,
yeah.
before actually opening it, about how am I going to get to this coffee shop? How am I going to get to the point where we can open and expand and then do this? You finally get there and you realize that, maybe that's not totally what you wanted. And being open to evolving that vision, I think is really
Yeah.
important.
So what I'm hearing is that the business vision could definitely evolve, but the
Sure.
personal passion
That's
typically
yeah,
stays the same. Yeah, and that should be the driving force. And I learned a lot in business that sometimes people allow the business vision to take over and their
sure.
passions get set aside because now they're like, well, I'm all in. I've invested this much.
Totally.
But allowing the business vision to evolve so that way it reflects and it aligns with your personal passion
Oh,
and
that
that's
makes a ton of
huge.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think especially getting into a business that you do care about or you have a personal connection with or you feel passionately about. I mean, you see people tend to not get quite as burnt out on those as quickly, whenever you do care about the product and you're not
Yeah.
just trying to build it up for the sake of building it up necessarily.
For sure, for sure. Now, in your industry, right? We're going to shift gears a little bit here. In
Sure.
your industry, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for you right now, as a roaster in your basement, and just
Sure.
kind of rebranding and rebuilding from where you actually want to be?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of it's different. I think like I was saying, where there used to not be as many roasters, and now there are roasters all over the place. There is an opportunity to be, unique and to have an identity. And I think some of that can be with it's like addition by subtraction almost. I feel like
Mm,
sometimes we get into the habit of just like adding for the sake of adding, and you'll walk into a shop or you'll buy from a roaster, and there are a million different coffees, a million different things. Everyone's doing everything all the time,
yeah, yeah,
um, and I think you can focus on a couple of things now and try to do them to the best of your possible ability. And I think that can really separate you from other shops or other roasters by not trying to do everything, but by trying to do a couple of things really well and really putting those up on a pedestal. And I
wow,
think, everyone's got a different idea of that. There's
sure,
definitely opportunity for everybody. The market's so big and the coffee industry is so big. There's a place for everyone. But for
yeah.
me specifically, I feel like, kind of having that hyper narrowed focus is kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, yeah. I heard somebody say that in the military. I don't know what branch says slow is smooth. Sometimes you got to get back to going slow, get back to the basics, so that way
Yeah,
you could smooth. And in a lot of cases, that just kind of makes things faster by nature.
absolutely.
It's like that the slight edge.
Yeah, the
Um,
basics never go away. It's kind of boring, it's kind of simple, but
yeah,
always going back to the basics of just like making sure you're sourcing the best coffee or really putting
mm,
in the time to profile a coffee to the best you possibly
yeah,
can. I think those are never going to go out of style. I think they're
yeah,
always going to serve you well.
absolutely. Didn't we have this conversation when we were prepping for this, or where I think you said it or I said it? It's like you have a good business when it's boring, right? Like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
everything's basic, it's following the systems, everything's kind of
right.
going the way it's supposed to. It's like there's no excitement of chaos going on, right?
Totally.
And yeah, and that's kind of where you want it, so that way you can have the time and the money to kind of do your personal stuff, the things that you
Yeah.
really want to do in
Oh,
life. Because
absolutely.
correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think business owners really always get in business because they love what they do per
Sure.
se. I mean, I think you like coffee, right? And you found
Fair,
a
fair,
place here.
fair point.
But
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, it's like, they just want an opportunity for more time and more money to be able
Sure.
to do what they actually want to do. Which, like for me, I want to travel the world with my kids. I got 5 children, things like that. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, this is a question I really love, like my favorite question of all. What advice would you give yourself 10 years ago right? Knowing what you know now, the challenges, the victories that you went through as a business owner, and what it's made you as a human being as a result. Like
Sure.
10 years ago, what type of advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I think something that kind of applies to both business and to other things. It's kind of enjoy the process a little bit.
Mm,
I think sometimes early on, especially, you have this
mhm,
maybe this end goal in mind, or this well, if I get to this point, this is where I'll be finally happy and content with it. And
mm,
really, it's like the whole process, the whole journey, the building from the early stages. It's all really looking back. You have such fond memories of it, and it was a lot. It was some long nights of roasting and bagging coffee and brewing coffee to get ready for a farmer's market, and getting up early and loading it all up in the car and dragging your tent to the
yeah,
market and stuff. And it was, at the time, it was a lot, but I look back at it and it was like, it was so cool, it was so fun. And
yeah,
I felt like sometimes I wanted to skip over all of that and just get to the point where it was this big followed coffee roasting business, and everybody knows about it and all this stuff. And I think just
yeah.
kind of being along for the ride and embracing the kind of journey of it, not trying to skip over things, is maybe
That's
the best
cool.
advice.
Yeah, some people like you can go longer if you focus on the actual journey than the destination, right? Like you have a
Absolutely,
lot more
yeah,
endurance in that.
that's
That's
exactly.
cool. That's cool. So now, where do you see yourself in the future? Let's say even 3 years from now.
Yeah, that's a really good question. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with where it is right this second. I think after selling the shop to my business partner and kind of being able to refocus on the roasting and the sourcing, and I still have a say. I still consult with the shop and stuff, so I still get to be involved in the end product at the shop. I'm always QCing the drinks, and it's my kind of recipes in the shop and stuff. So I get to have the best of both worlds a little bit, where I get to be
Mhm,
involved in the shop. I get to have the coffee that I want to give to the end consumer, but I get to really be hyper focused on the sourcing and the roasting, and get to
mm,
do that part of it. And so it'll be interesting 3 years from now to see where it's at. But I think for right now, I'm pretty content with where it's at. I'm pretty happy. Maybe
mhm.
someday I'll do farmers markets again. I
Okay.
think it'd be really cool to have like just like a really small, like, just cold brew stand, like cold brew and pour over stand,
Nice,
without
nice.
espresso somewhere. I don't know. Bottled cold brew is always interesting. I think that's a really interesting avenue to go down. I think
Yeah,
people are always looking for really high quality cold brew, and shops aren't always just around the corner. So
yeah. I'm
we'll
getting
see.
super thirsty just listening to that. I'm a coffee
Yeah,
snob,
right.
dude. I'm like,
Yeah, sorry about
cold
that.
brew, pour over, espresso. I'm just kind of drooling over all
We'll have you
that.
over to the shop.
Sounds good. Yeah,
Soon, and we'll hook you up. But
absolutely.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
I think for now, though, we'll just kind of
So,
see what happens. But it's
so
we're in a good spot right now.